This is The Fort Builders, the podcast where we explore the moments, memories, and meaning that made someone who they are, and discover what we might build in our own lives because of it. I'm your host, Lance Johnson. Welcome to The Fort. Let's begin. Welcome to The Fort Builders. I am really excited about today and my guest. And I don't know if I should call you Mayor, but a good friend of mine, Brad Finkeldei. And that's, at least that's how I know you.
Yes.
But I've been looking forward to this. Brad, you're somebody that I admire a lot, and not just for what you do, but the way you show up and impact those around you. So kind of fitting with the Fort theme and wanting to understand, how did you get, or how do you become who you are today? And I will tell you, before I kick it off to you, I am amazed if there's anybody that knows how to maximize their time. And in fact, if there's anybody that can make time, you somehow are able to. You're somebody that I feel like you are sometimes in 2 or 3 places at once, doing multiple things, and I don't know if I can come up with somebody else in the community, or at least that I know of, that does more things and does more for people and those around them. So I'm intrigued to hear more about your life, and so excited to have you here, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Well, I appreciate being here and happy to share a little bit and about myself. And, a lot of it has to do with, I do what I do because I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
that helps me find time.
Yeah. Well, no doubt that you enjoy it, right? But like I said, and I didn't go through the list of all the things that you do, but I think a lot of people say they do things because they enjoy them. But how do you do? Or did that start at a young age? Were you a busy kid?
I was pretty busy.
Yeah.
I think it probably started more in college though than maybe high school so much. I mean, obviously I was busy in high school, did a lot of things in high school, but really when I got involved in college, I got involved doing stuff in the residence halls, as a chemical engineer and in student government, and did some leadership things like Blue Key. And it was really part of that time where I really started to try to figure out how to use my time wisely.
Yeah.
And that's really where I learned it.
Well, it's interesting you say, and I was waiting to see if you brought it up, but chemical engineer. And I don't know if you can pick much of a tougher undergrad degree. As a fellow engineer, I've been through some of that. I would tell you that it took everything I had pretty much just to get through school. So I wasn't looking for a whole lot of extra things. And yeah, I had extra things, but I would say the engineering program, at least the one I went through, is structured. And like you said, you kind of got to figure things out, and it helps provide that. But still, again, you go back to chemical engineer is not an easy path, and then finding the time to get involved. And I find that you're not, there's one thing to go play golf, or let's say, let's go fishing. But again, back to, you are doing stuff that's impacting others. These are not, at least from what I can tell, your hobbies are not, I don't want to say selfish, but you're around other people.
Yeah, I think that's, when I said I do stuff I enjoy, that when people ask me what my hobbies are, typically, my number one hobby right now is being on city commission. Um, and and then, I don't golf, I don't, watch much TV. I don't yeah, my main I read a little bit. I like to read, but
Yeah.
otherwise, my main hobbies are being on city commission, being involved, and those are the things that give me energy. Some people get energy by staying at home and reading a book or watching a movie. I tend to get energy by being with people, and so being out there, being involved. really, actually helps me with my day job, helps me, in my marriage, helps me in my life, so that's a big part of it.
Very fulfilling
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's natural is what you're saying. You just do it. If you were to take us back, so whether you want to go there or not, part of at least my journey when I meet someone, and I've recognized it over time that, um, because I come across people that there's difference of opinion, thoughts, different backgrounds. But I always try to, when I see them, I always try to think, gosh, what were they like maybe in kindergarten or first grade? Because at least when I look back to first grade or kindergarten, it was, what was it? Naivete. We were creative. Nothing was in our way. Hey, you've got a belly button. I've got a belly button. Oh, that's cool. Let's go do something. Let's go
Yeah.
play. And so I, yeah. So if you could take us back to Brad, back when you were a kid, what did that look like?
Well, probably the biggest part of that is, for those who don't know, I have an identical twin brother, and so I always, as a young, forever, I had a built-in playmate, as it were. And my brother and I were close, and my brother and I, played a lot together, and interacted together, you know, f- obviously all the time. Now in school, they always kept us in different classes. That was the thing back then. We could never be in the same class together. So during the day, you wouldn't be together. But as soon as class was out, we were together. And so, um, I think that made a lot of who I was. I'm a little more outgoing than my brother, not much. But I was a little more the outgoing one. And so anyway, I think that had a lot to do with kind of how I interact, and kind of this idea of not having downtime. Like, I didn't
Mm.
spend, we always stayed in the same room. I mean, getting in trouble, we'd always get in trouble because, my parents would be yelling at us to stop talking at night. I mean, being alone was never something I did.
Mm.
I was always with my brother or in class or doing something, and I just never learned to have alone time as a way to recharge. It was always, being with somebody.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, you learned to, whether you wanted to or not, you
Yeah,
just learned to, and
yeah,
maybe that's just always stayed with you.
exactly.
Um,
I think
I will
so.
tell, I will tell you a funny story. I mean, just I met your brother at a graduation party, um, and it was interesting. We were standing there talking, and it was probably, I don't know, 5 minutes talking with him, that I finally dawned on me I wasn't talking to you. So,
Yeah.
you guys, you guys look a lot alike, and it wasn't like standing right in front of him looking eye to eye, but we were just kind of standing there holding a drink and talking, and it finally. Then I saw you walk up, and that was interesting. So
Yeah, and again, besides looking alike, we sound alike, which is a big,
yeah.
obviously we have a little bit of a speech impediment, kind of have a unique sound to us, but
Mhm.
even on the phone, our people who know us have a hard time telling us apart on the phone because our voices are so similar.
That's interesting. Does your brother as busy as you are?
He
Did he
is
grow up?
he's pretty busy. He's the assistant superintendent of the Wichita Catholic Schools, and
Okay.
has a pretty big job that way. Works with lots of different people. Very busy in his job. And then of course has his family. I Because of what he does. Like lots of principals or assistant superintendents. I wouldn't say he does a lot, quote, outside of work, but his work
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
in the evenings and weekends, and that's
Consumes a lot.
that
Yeah.
consumes a lot of what he does in the education field. So he's a very busy person as well.
Wow. So did you see, was there someone in the two of yours life or in your life that kind of set that example? Or was it parents or was there someone that you watched that you guys kind of picked that up?
Yeah, I would say, certainly my parents, my mom was a nurse, and so she worked a lot and close to our school. So we would, go there after school while she was working. And, she was involved in her church.
Hmm.
My dad was busy at work as well, and he was a big bass fisherman. So he'd leave a lot on the weekends to go to bass fishing tournaments. And then when he wasn't doing that, we were camping together, often left on Friday, coming back on Sunday. So again, we didn't spend a lot of time just at home, hanging out. And we were pretty go 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 sort of family.
Doing stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Hmm.
Um, so all right, so you grew up. I'm seeing it right there. I mean, your mom, just knowing you and who you are now, involved in the church and just community, and then you say your mom was a nurse and um, involved in the church. Any memories or moments that stand out to you in that you can remember that how a feeling if you
Yeah.
look back?
No, I don't know. I think it was I'm not sure if there's a specific one I can
Hmm.
think of really that my mom was always, busy with the church and otherwise, and I just always knew being part of that was important to me.
Yeah.
And and so I always knew I wanted to do that, and I guess really, some of my my civic service really came up when I got to K-State, and got involved in student government. But the idea of service in general, I think, was something that I always, always had as a kid growing up.
Did you growing up, was the plan, did you know early on that you were going to be a chemical engineer or that you're going to undergrad and this is what I'm going to do?
No, I mean, certainly I got into high school, and chemistry was one of my favorite subjects, and I
Uh-huh.
know, back in the day, the question was, definitely pick a major and pick a major that you can get some scholarships in. And
Yep.
so I actually went to K-State as a chemistry major, not a chemical engineer. Um, and I really found that chemistry, you know, I didn't really want to be in a lab because, as we've
Hmm.
talked about, I didn't really want to be alone in a room, with a test tube.
Right.
And so after my first year in chemistry, I thought, well, I'd rather be an engineer. That gets me out, doing more things, with more people. And so I switched from chemistry to chemical engineering. And of course, eventually I switched to law school. But again, I think part of that was, even as I got through engineering, a lot of the jobs were in oil fields in Texas.
Hmm.
And that didn't really appeal to me either. And so, I kind of ended up going to law school for the same reasons people get an MBA nowadays. I mean, back then the MBA wasn't as big of a deal. And I thought, well, if I go to law school, I could get involved and do some other things. Um, and so I didn't really even go to law school just to be a lawyer. Like I'd never been in a courtroom. No one in my family was a lawyer. I didn't really go thinking I was going to, be a prosecutor or a defense lawyer or something. I really went kind of, as a way to get into a job where I knew it would allow me to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah. You saw a path.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And I'm just sitting here thinking, well, again, you might speak a little bit to you, the law firm that you're with now. I mean, back to you could just be a normal attorney,
Mhm.
and again, have a hobby as a city commissioner, or be on the city commission. But um, you manage the firm. I mean, so back,
Well, and I would say that the firm itself actually, I went to, for your KU or friends in the room, I went to K State,
I was
and
going to keep that. I was going to let you bring that up. So,
I went to K State, and I was the student body vice president there for 2 years, and really enjoyed that. And when I came to law school, I, was not a big, KU fan, not a big Lawrence fan. My now wife was back in Manhattan. My friends were in Manhattan. And so my first, 2 years of law school, I mainly on the weekends I go back to Manhattan, and never really got involved at KU, outside of the law school.
Mm,
Went back to K State for things, went for football and basketball, and to
mhm,
see Amy, and then Amy and I actually got married between my second and third year of law school, and she had graduated and went to Kansas City. So my third year of law school, I lived in Kansas City and drove in to law school. And all of that's to say, I had no intention of ever living in Lawrence. I mean, that was not in the plan at all. But
as most K-State
yeah,
grads would say, right?
exactly.
Yeah, I think
And
that
even
that
while I was in law school, I wasn't like one of those people who got involved. Like I fell in love with Lawrence because I did stuff. I mean, yes, we occasionally went to the sandbar and did a few things, but it
mhm,
was not, my normal kind of routine. But I say all that because when I started interviewing for jobs, a lot of the jobs I interviewed were with really large law firms where you work a lot of hours and, do some interesting work. But, it's all about the billable hour, about accomplishing that, and then eventually becoming a partner. And I knew I did not want to be in that kind of law practice.
mhm,
And so I was looking for a law firm that would allow me to be involved, and maybe eventually get into maybe some politics, maybe, serving the community. And one of my professors turned me on to Stevens and Brand, and this law firm had a long history of folks who had served in the legislature. They had folks involved, very very involved in the community and different types of politics, but not only politics, but all over the community. It was very important to them that I lived in Lawrence, that I got involved,
mhm.
um, and so that's the main reason I chose this firm is I knew it was a firm that let me do that. And, within the first month, I'm in Rotary Club, I'm on the ballot board.
Wow.
They wanted me involved like that from day one. So the law firm was one that allowed me to get involved and practice law. And that's certainly been a big part of that from day one.
Yeah, that in hearing your kind of backstory and who you are, that makes so much sense. In hearing and from what I know of Stevens and Brand, and I've been in this community quite a while, and but being part of a small firm, it's pretty tough to be overlooked and forgotten. In those big firms, I'm hearing it's easy to probably feel alone or lonely. And so I think I can hear it's very natural what you're saying that very intentionally, that's what you were probably, well, whether you knew it or not, you were seeking that. And that's
Yeah.
cool to hear that. I love it that you're here in Lawrence, not somewhere else.
Mhm.
It's good. It sounds like enough Lawrence wore off on you, or it
Love it.
didn't keep, it did, at least it has by now, but it didn't at the time, it didn't scare you away.
That's right.
Um, I've had some K-State friends that have moved away, that have been here, then moved away, and just jokingly, they know how much of a KU fan I am. So we have a lot of fun ribbing each other, but they would say, man, it was tough living in Lawrence. There's just a lot of red and blue. But you guys got your catbackers here. And,
Right. Yeah,
but,
I've never had a big problem with that. I've never
yeah,
really had a big problem with that.
yeah,
And so I've always enjoyed it, and it's plus I'm close enough to get over to Manhattan when I want to go see the cat.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stevens and Brand, you're there and, right, you're from almost like day one. They're saying, "Hey, go be part of the community,
Mhm.
go meet people." And I can obviously knowing that just fit, and you're able to thrive and just. I would bet that just felt great. And so, can you give me a little insight, or give the listeners a little insight from there, then city commission?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was. I guess I want to call it a straight line, but it was it may be a predictable line. I mean, like I said, I got involved right away in things like Rotary and the Ballot Center, and within the first year, some of the partners here were working on Wentworth in particular, who had been a state legislator and had run for attorney general. He was helping someone run for the county commission, so I got involved in a county commission race on the political side. Um, and then that just kept going. I ended up, staying on the ballot board for 18 years, but that led me to, being involved, later in Family Promise and on the Red Cross board. Um, was involved in a lot of different campaigns. Got involved in the chamber. Eventually became the president of the chamber. Got appointed to the planning commission and did that for 6 years. And all the while, kind of worked on different city commission campaigns and county commission campaigns. Um, and, I kind of thought one day I might try to be on the city commission, even a while back, but was waiting for the right time, because of my kids in particular. And about the time my oldest had moved out, and my youngest was, driving and, not around a lot because she was so busy herself and lots of things. The timing just felt right when I ran in 2018. But I had done a lot of the nonprofit, I'd done the chamber, had done planning commission, had worked on lots of campaigns, and really felt the time was right to jump in back in the 2018 campaign.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here jotting down relationships, involved people, words that I think kind of not sum you up, but
Mhm.
help
Yeah, I'll
describe
make
you, that you love to be with people and help them. And I think like you said, maybe not a straight line, but given that involvement from an early age, or not early age, sorry, early part in your career, it would be a natural almost extension that the relationships and the people that you're working with, it and knowing you're going to say, hey, how can I keep helping them? What more can I do to help? And so to me, it makes a lot of sense why you'd go there. And I think Lawrence is lucky to have you in that position. For a lot of reasons, but I think your variety, maybe diversity of experience and the different groups that you've worked with over time uh, has given you a lot of perspective. And there's been a lot of voices, as you know, as a city commissioner. Hopefully your ears are open, and you're getting those voices. And I think all those years of you hearing that has helped. Um, do you want to talk any about city commission? So you went on a. I'll leave that up to you. I know, and I've thought we could keep from doing that just because I know everybody else wants to hear you talk about that. But I don't want to leave the listeners. If there's any lessons learned or thoughts or whatever you want to, if there's anything you want to say.
Well, I think the one thing I'd say is what is I mean, I don't know, most interesting for me, but like I said, there was kind of this path, and I was ready to run. I thought I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew I was ready to roll, and then COVID hit. 3 months in, COVID hit, and it changed,
yeah,
how the city commission operated, what we did, all the
yeah.
things, a lot of things I thought I was going to do. And then, of course, you not only had, COVID itself and kind of, that thing, but, the change in homelessness, the whole George Floyd situation, and of course, all the how the taxes came in and how you operated and so I had all this quote plans in my mind and thoughts of how it was
Mm,
going to happen, and then it just all went sideways for 2 years, basically. And my first 2 or 3 years in office, certainly my first term as mayor, was
mm,
nothing like I had expected or nothing like I thought I'd experience. And really, this is really only in the last year or two that I've really felt like what I thought I was getting into and I ran really came
Hmm.
back. I mean, the world is different, definitely different than it was before, but it has settled
Right.
back into, more of a routine and more of a, and I think the city commission is a lot more like it was, when you served and earlier, um, just because it's now out of the whole COVID,
Yeah.
world. So that's how I think is most interesting. And I'm enjoying or looking forward to this year as mayor. So much more than the first time, which was just a weird time in history, and certainly in the city.
I had I had forgotten about that. Now that you said that, that hit you right when you came in, and so yeah, that was a crazy time, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is a little bit, and this is kind of again kind of what this is about is the twists and turns,
Hmm.
and things don't always go as you expect them to. You
Yeah.
had an idea or thoughts and a vision of, okay, here's what I got elected, and okay, here's what we're going to do, and then very quickly it changed.
Yeah.
How can you can you tell? I mean, how did that feel?
It was. I mean, it was tough in one way. And certainly, like I said, I really thought it was going to be this way, but of course, your whole world was turned upside down. So I was dealing with it like everyone else, from the law firm to my family, and my daughter's. My Reagan was in Peru at the time when COVID hit, and she trapped
Oh,
down in Peru, and so all these things were going on, that made everything different. So it was a difficult time. And then, I mean, I say this a little bit jokingly, but as we've mentioned, I really find enjoyment and fulfillment in being with people. And
yeah,
COVID really stopped that,
yeah,
really changed that in the way you interacted with people and the way you dealt with things. So it hit me on various levels, that, I had to get used to. But, I will say I was appreciative. You mentioned earlier that that I had some varied experiences coming in, and I had lots of relationships coming in, with people in the community. And I think that was very helpful to the commission.
mm,
And, you know, um, because if you come on commission, obviously from time to time people come on commission, and they're using the first 6 months or a year to build relationships, to understand
right,
what's going on, to try to learn what's happening. And luckily I had some of that. I already had built that, so I could hit the ground
Y-
running in ways that others couldn't, which I think was helpful at the time.
yeah, yeah. You had some support that you could
Yeah.
rely on, and no, hearing you verbalize it and say, again, I'm hearing kind of lonely, and somebody that likes to be with people. And I remember now going back, city commission meetings are online. You're
Hmm.
not showing up there, and so that changes things. But yeah, so if you didn't have that support, which I'm already hearing, very lonely and scary,
Hmm.
and didn't, everything that you thought it was going to be was just kind of chaos.
Yeah.
And without that support, you can only imagine. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. So, I think that's, um, the most interesting, I think, part about commission. I mean, obviously people can,
I-
you know, talk about other parts of being on the commission, but I think to me that was the thing that really struck me and really
yeah.
changed my perception.
Any, so you've been on there a while. Anything you could tell her that you could think of that would be interesting for the listeners, either inside baseball or just not lessons learned, but just thoughts on whether it's issues or getting involved, or hey, it's not just what you read in the newspaper kind of thing, but just maybe a little insight into your world, if you will. I don't want to say politics.
Yeah.
I never felt Lawrence, being on the city commission, it never felt like politics, like I think what people see, or maybe think it is, definitely from a national, state or national standpoint.
Yeah, I would say, I think it goes back a little bit to like you said with relationships, and to me, there's so much more that happens on city commission, so many, things that we do and talk about and deal with that one don't show up on the city commission agenda, um,
Good
or
point.
talked about on the city commission agenda. And then to think about, you know, our average city commission agenda is 4 hours, 5 hours long, and you get about, you know, a column and a half, summary of everything that happened.
Mhm.
Um, and so, obviously, I mean, the paper can report what the paper reports outcomes and all that, but it doesn't really capture, what's really going on. And if what a person reads in the paper is their base of knowledge about what's going on in the city, I don't want to say it's inaccurate, but it's certainly incomplete.
Yeah, yeah,
And
right.
but um, the thing about being involved and knowing people and talking to people, a lot of the people I interact with, are more involved beyond just reading the paper. And so that is where a lot of the work is done and a lot of the understanding is done. And and you know, anyway, I think that's something most people don't understand.
Yeah, right. So what I heard was city commission meetings are pretty short, and you guys usually it's pretty easy decisions. Is
Something like that. Something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, no, right.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's what do people say? There's usually two sides to every story. I don't. I've always told people there's a lot more than two. There's a lot, and yeah, and so again, going back to all of the years of relationship, friendship, people you work with, I would think that's so valuable. To kind of to your point, the paper reports out something, and like you said, it's. I'm not saying it's not inaccurate or not right. It's just it doesn't catch all the nuance, and there's no way it can catch all the conversation
Yeah.
and all the human emotion that goes into those decisions, or at least also the advocacy from different parties. So it, well, I want to tell you thank you for doing what you do. It takes a lot of time,
Sure.
and appreciate that, but it's love that you're doing it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So kind of looking ahead, again, kind of metaphorically, we talk about the fort builders, and that to me, that's kind of about creating or building something. What's the next fort for you, or what's, where you at right now? I guess you've kind of described where you're at now. Looking ahead, what's kind of the outlook for you or city or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like, lots of people, um, my age, I'm kind of in that point now where, my oldest daughter got married last summer and my youngest is graduating from college and, looking at grad schools and, um, I'm still a long ways from retirement, but I can see retirement,
Yeah,
And so, being an empty nester here for a while and so, I do think we're starting to look at kind of another phase in the life. And so it'll be interesting. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I have 2 more
yeah,
years left on the commission, then I could run again or not.
hmm
And I'd say now I might not. I certainly enjoy it, and so on many days I see, yeah, I could do this again. Um, but other times I think, 4 more years, so 6 years from now is a long time.
yeah,
And so, I think about that. But, certainly, trying to see what happens with my kids and where they end up. And right now, one's in Wyoming and one's in Boston. So, that leads to lots of traveling, and I
Yep.
don't, maybe they'll be back one day, but anyway, so I think, just trying to figure out where that next part of my life is.
Yeah. Yeah, I would tell you, I'm I'm in a very similar situation.
Mhm.
And just returned with my wife, a couple weeks ago. We went on vacation, and so sitting on the beach, kinda and probably a couple drinks in hand, thinking about, yeah, where would that be? Where to slow down, or is there a place to retire? And it came down to the conclusion that we gotta see where our kids are gonna be.
Mhm.
And we're kind of in that stage of life too, to see where
Yeah.
they're gonna spread their wings and what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
But it's fun to dream and look out there.
Yep.
You know what? Kind of it just came up, and I was thinking in my mind, has there been a decision or an issue on the commission that's been kind of defining for you? One that stands out? Um,
Well, I think, the one I will, I think that people have heard me say this before, that, I think the new development code will have the longest
yeah.
impact of anything we did on the commission. Took us about 2 years to do that, and I think it, you know, over time will have one of the largest impacts on the city. Got the sunlight right on me.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
the largest impact overall about the future of the city. A lot of the decisions we make are momentary.
Hmm. Hmm.
You make the decision and it could be changed next year. You fund this, you don't fund that. Sometimes you approve something that, obviously will last a long time, but, I'd say the development code will have the broadest impact. And it was something I was able to chair that committee and something I was really involved in. So, everything is the full commission, but it is one thing I feel that I had a particular hand in, that I think will have a lasting impact.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. You're right that it will have a lasting, and I think very positive impact for the community. Because one of the things, as you know, we talk about affordability, and as well as stretching our infrastructure. And whether that's good or bad, and we can make cases for that, and but providing housing that people can hopefully afford. And I think the things that code, um, I think there are some communities, from what I could tell, in the country doing similar things, but I believe it's pretty cutting edge and it's innovative. And I commend you and the committee and the city for having that foresight and that vision. For what you all did, it's easy to not do. As like you said, as a city commission, it's really uh, or city commissioner. Um, Sometimes it's a more about in the moment, and then who's there and what's the loudest voice, and to be able to have that vision and look ahead and stay with it and stick with it. Yeah, we'll be thanking you. I think
Yeah.
generations from now, we'll look back. We're probably all gone, and that's going to have a huge impact, thumbprint on the community.
Yeah. And I think, the two other things I mentioned, one that affects the city commission, but not really something we did, and then one that is coming in the future. I'll say, I think if you look, when, 50 years from now, or something, when people look back at Lawrence, I think they'll see Chancellor Girard and the Gateway Project and the Crossing
Mm,
Project as defining moments. Forever the university and the city shall not meet, as it relates to design
right?
and being, paying taxes, and that they're the university, we were the city. And Chancellor Girard and the endowment, deciding to do the crossing project on their land, right at 23rd in Iowa, then to do the Gateway project, where we will have, retail and housing on what was traditionally KU property. And again, density, infill,
Yep.
excitement around the university. I think that that will be something people look back on, and certainly we were a part of that by supporting that. But I give that more to Chancellor Gerard and theirs. But we were part of that, and I think that's a big deal that maybe some people aren't really appreciating right now. But I think in the long run, they'll look back and say that was a very important year or two.
Yes. Yeah, very transformational for the city, and,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one I'll mention is, and we'll see what happens here in my last 2 years, but there's been an annexation request for 800 acres west of, the South Lawrence Traffic Way, west of town, and I think that's the next, big step in the community. We're surrounded by rivers and highways, and jumping the SLT to the west. Um, if that comes to fruition and how it comes to fruition, again, I think will be a, 20, 30, 40-year project, and define the growth. And that first jump will,
Uh,
if it happens, will happen in the next 2 years probably, and I'll be part of that. So I think that'll be something for people to watch and see.
no, I love that you brought that up, and, probably a lot of listeners, who knows, don't remember back what Lawrence was like really before Alvamar, let's call
Mhm.
it Bob Billings, developed
Yep.
Alvamar, John McGrew, Bob Billings, and others. But you could trace Lawrence, and it wasn't necessarily a, geographic issue. It just that's how big Lawrence was at one time and went to Iowa. And
Mhm.
then I think it filled into Castle, and you've got those segments. But now anybody that drives around town, you would never think, gosh, you would always think Lawrence was this big and like this. And you're right. The K10, that bypass, is a natural barrier, for, getting infrastructure there. And so it's kind of held things up, but, it makes sense. That's where Lawrence has got to grow. And you're right. 40, 50 years from now, we look back and people won't even probably realize or remember that it was an issue and
Yep.
what it took to get that infrastructure and the investments being made, the risk, whatever it is. And so back to leadership and vision. It takes that to, impact and grow and I guess lead a community, and appreciate you doing that.
Yep.
Well, I think we're getting close to time. Your time, very valuable. Appreciate you being here. If someone's listening to this themselves in your story, anything you'd want to tell them?
I think, I'm a big believer, as we've talked about, in getting involved in your community and, be it a nonprofit board or be it, getting involved on a committee. Certainly not running for city commission is not something you have to do, but getting involved on all the levels is where it really, really makes a difference. And I think about my years on the ballot board or the family promise board and the people helped and the people I met along the way, who were
Yeah.
giving of their time. I mean, again, I think in today's age, it is, so easy, just to go home after work and stay in and, maybe do your kids' activities. But I'm a big believer in things like Rotary and being involved on boards. And I really think that's how it makes your community a really great place, is for people who say, I'm going to do something else outside of my circle to help people. And I just encourage people to do that.
Yeah. Well, anything else you got?
That's it. Thanks for
No,
having
that's
me.
it. Well, I just kind of want to echo to what you just said. What I've heard, and it goes sometimes. What do they say? The gift is to sometimes the giver. I mean, the giver feels like they're giving something to somebody else, but sometimes it can impact them more. So, kind of to your point, it can also be, good for them from a kind of a feeling. So, all right, man. Well, really appreciate you being in the fort. Thanks for your time.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you. What part of your story might be shaping who you're becoming, even if you haven't fully named it yet? This is the Fort Builders. Thanks for being part of the build.